All right, then. We have a lot to do today, that's for sure. So we'll start by looking at the chapter 10 problem set, 11 rather, and the sample midterm. All right. And now, also, before we completely forget about it, I just want to remind you that we do not have any school on Monday. You might have forgotten about that. If you look at the Moodle, well, not Moodle, but their website of the school, you'll see that listed on the front is a list of 3 holidays that we have been granted to make up for the loss of spring break. And so they are, let's see, here we go. Academic calendar, right here. And wait a minute. Oh, hold on. Here it is. Right there. No classes Monday, May the 3rd. All right. Well, that's good. So we finally have a day off, although I think we could have used it a little sooner in the semester. It's a little odd to have it now, but that's what they're giving us, and so we're going to take it. So that means we have a lot to do today and next Thursday to get everything done. So we'll start with the chapter. Once again, let me double check myself. My notes 11 and sample midterm number 2. All right. Now, once that is done, we should be able to quickly wrap up chapter 15. I think we're almost done with it anyway. And then what I would like you to do is between now and the next time I see you, 3 more things. There's, by the way, let me just take a step back here. The final is based on 11, 12, and 15 only. No, it's 12. What am I saying? It's 11. All right, let me go back here. Oh, no, sorry. No, look at the wrong one. There we go. So 11, 12, 13, and 15 would constitute our final exam. Okay. So I believe that's right, isn't it? Yes. No, according to this, it's 12. Wait a minute. That can't be right. No, my mistake. All right, let's try that again. The second midterm is 10 and 11 only. All right, now we're getting somewhere. All right, that's because the chapter numbers are so similar to one of my other classes. That's why I keep getting it screwed up. Right, let's try that again. So after we finish the chapter 11 problem set today and the sample midterm number 2, you will be ready to do the second midterm, which I will post, and you'll be able to take care of it. Let's say, the usual week or so. Maybe it could be due, let's say, a week from Friday at midnight. And then the final exam will just be 12, 13, and 15. That's more like it. So what we need to do after today, when we finish the chapter 11 problem set and the sample midterm number 2, is next time we'll have to do 4 things, 3 problem sets. Actually, I did not write a problem set for 13 because it's very, very short, and all that material is incorporated onto this sample final. So actually, we only have to do 3 things next time. And those 3 things would then be the chapter 12 problem set, the chapter 15 problem set, and the sample final. So that would be next Thursday, the 6th of May. Okay, and I don't see any problem getting all that done. So let's start now with 11, and we'll take it from there. There we go. All right, here we are, finally, at long last. Let's look at these right now. Today's the 29th. Okay, so let's get this going. So, oh my God, I never noticed that. Yeah, I just noticed there's a typo in there, isn't there? Hold on 1 second. I'm going to fix that because it annoys me to no end. Okay, good. All right, let's get to this. Now, first things first, what exactly is a cross exchange rate? Okay, well, a cross exchange rate is one that does not involve the dollar. All right, so let me show you an example of this. Sorry, this is an exchange rate that does not involve the dollar. So just as a quick example, it doesn't ask for one, but I'll give you one anyway. How about if you saw a quote for the number of yen that it takes to buy a pound? So let's say we discover that it takes 140 yen to buy a British pound. That would be considered a cross exchange rate because it does not include the dollar. And that's all there is to it. The dollar is the world's vehicle currency. So any exchange rate that does not mention the dollar is considered to be a cross exchange rate. All right, now forward exchange rate. This is the price of a currency that will be delivered in the future. Okay, now usually when I say in the future, I mean, it could in principle be any time frame. The most common dates would be, let's say, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, maybe 180. But in general, anytime an exchange rate is quoted for delivery in the future, that would be defined as a forward exchange rate. Now, a currency swap, this is an agreement to exchange one currency for another with an agreement to reverse the transaction in the future. So basically, it's a temporary purchase of a foreign currency. You can think about it that way. If I agree to buy pounds today, but then resell them in the future to the same counterparty, that is defined as a swap. It means I really only need the currency for a short period of time, and I would like to unwind the transaction at some specific point in the future. Very good. Now, what if we have a quote for the dollar pound exchange rate? So there's two prices. There's always two. The bid price is the one on the left. It's the lower of the two. And think about it this way. Just as to remember, the bid price is the price at which the dealer will buy pounds. Okay, so imagine you need pounds or you want to sell pounds. And you go to a dealer and say, all right, no problem. We'll give you $1.3429 for each pound you give us. They want to buy at a lower price and they will sell it back to you for a higher price. If you want to buy pounds, you're going to pay the one on the right, the ask price, which of course is higher. This is where they make their money. Okay. So for the same set of quotes, the ask price is the higher one. And this means, I'll put this in quotes, this is not a necessary part of the question, but it's good for you to know this. The ask price is the price at which the dealer will sell pounds. All right, so that's why the numbers are different. So you notice the dealer's making money either way. They're buying at a low price, they're selling at a high price. That's where their profits come from. Otherwise, they couldn't stay in business. So you might say, hey, I'm being ripped off. No, you're not. But in exchange for this, they're providing you with a service. So the bid-ask spread is the difference between these two. This equals, it actually equals the ask price minus this. It sounds backwards, but ask price minus the bid price. Okay, so that would equal this number minus the other one. It has to be positive. Let's put it that way. So if you're looking at this and you don't remember how it works, just remember this represents the profit of the dealer. It has to be positive. because they're the ones who are setting the prices. All right, you're not the one who sets. You agree to either buy or sell at the prices they quote, but they're the ones who are actually setting these prices. So this would be, the difference is 0.0179 dollars per pound. All right. Now, suppose that the dollar-pound exchange rate rises from $1.36 to $1.38, which currency has appreciated? The pound has appreciated because it now takes more dollars to buy 1 pound. And I'll just note in parentheses, this also means that the dollar has depreciated, okay? Oh, I just realized there's 2 question 7s in a row. Oops, sorry about that. All right, that's all right, no big deal. Now, suppose that the yen-dollar exchange rate rises, which currency has depreciated? Okay, well, this means the yen has depreciated because it now takes more yen to buy $1. And of course, this also means that the dollar has appreciated. Okay, they have to, one of them has to appreciate, one depreciates. They can't both appreciate or depreciate. Now, what about a country whose currency is getting stronger? This causes the balance of payments, or I guess I should say the trade balance, by which we mean net exports, to worsen. Okay, because our exports are becoming more expensive to foreigners, so that will reduce our trade balance. Now, how about this one? In the long run, what happens to the inflation rate of a country whose currency depreciates? The inflation rate rises if the country's currency depreciates. All right, although this does take a long time. It's not the case that as soon as a country's currency depreciates, immediately they have more inflation. This is a long-term process. All right, now here's a numerical problem. We have a good that sells for $50 in the United States, and how much should it sell for in the United Kingdom? Well, in this case, we're going to actually divide. In fact, let me do this by hand so you can really see why this is happening. All right, so it all comes down to the units. All right, so let's say I have $50 and I divide that by $1.50 per pound. Algebraically, this is the equivalent of multiplying by 1 pound per $1.50. So the dollars cancel out and we're left with 33 pounds and 33 pence. If you multiplied, you would have the wrong answer, and you should be able to tell because the units would not cancel out properly. All right. A forward contract. Now, a forward contract, this is an agreement between counterparties to buy or sell an asset in the future. And as far as currencies are concerned, in other words, we can enter into a forward contract to trade one currency for another. For currencies, a forward contract involves trading one currency for another in the future. That's essentially what you're doing. Now, with a futures contract, this is a contract that is traded on an organized exchange to buy or sell an asset in the future. For currencies, a futures contract, just like a forward, involves trading one currency for another in the future. What's one of the main differences between these two types of contracts? Well, there's at least 4, but I think what we well, I'll list them all, but on the test, you can just list one of them. Okay. So number 1, forward contracts are negotiated between counterparties, while futures contracts are traded on organized exchanges. Then with a forward contract, there is always some credit risk, or sometimes it's called default risk, while there is none with a futures contract. Then we have the third one, a futures contract may be offset by taking the opposite position in another futures contract. This is not usually possible with a forward contract. And then finally, with a forward contract, no cash flows take place until the maturity date of the contract. With a futures contract, there may be cash flows every day due to the marking to market requirement. All right, so pick the one you like the best and stick with that one. But yeah, those are the big 4, the most important ones. And like I said, there's several important differences, although ultimately they really are the same idea. All right, now 14. A U.S. importer will buy pounds in 6 months and wishes to eliminate foreign exchange risk. Okay, so since the importer needs to buy pounds in the future, he or she will enter into a long forward contract. And that simply means a contract to buy pounds in the future. Now, if you forget how this works, hedging with a forward or futures contract means using the contract to do what will be done in the spot market in the future. Okay, so in other words, if you're going to buy pounds in the future, you hedge your risk by locking in the price at which you can buy them today with a forward contract. All right, now question 15 is just the opposite. They want to know, how will an exporter who's selling pounds hedge away their foreign exchange risk? All right, so here we say that since the exporter will sell pounds in the future, he or she can hedge the foreign exchange risk by entering into a short forward contract. And of course, this means a contract to sell pounds in the future. All right, now the focus switches to options, which we spent a significant amount of time studying. So we can think of an option is a derivative security that provides the right, but not the obligation, that's the key detail, to buy or sell an asset in the future at a price that is determined today. So in a lot of ways, it's like a forward contract, except that you have the right to change your mind. I'll throw it in parentheses. You don't have to do this, but it can be thought of as a forward contract where the investor can change his or her mind, in the sense that you don't have to go through with it. All right, very good. Now, the strike price, this is the price at which the underlying asset can be bought or sold. So in other words, you have to determine the price. The price is called the strike price, or sometimes it's called the exercise price. Well, now, what's the difference between a call and a put? A call option enables the owner to buy an asset in the future, while a put option enables the owner to sell the asset in the future. That's the key difference. Option, a call means you buy, a put means you sell. That's really the bottom line. Very good. All right. So now how about these? What is the difference between a European option and an American option? All right. So that involves the timing of the exercise. A European option can only be exercised on the maturity date. An American option can be exercised anytime until the maturity date. So you have a lot more options or choices with the American style option, but because of that, it is going to be much more expensive. All right, the payoff to a call option, remember we wrote it like this, max or maximum. Okay, so in other words here, the payoff can't actually be negative. It's the difference between the price of the asset and the strike price if positive. Otherwise, the payoff is zero. To the puts, we flip around the S and the X because remember with the put, we have the right to sell the asset rather than buying it. So it stands to reason that the payoff is going to be a little bit different. Okay. So that would be the opposite in effect. All right, now, profits and losses are different because now for the first time, we have to take into account how much we spent on the option. That is not listed in the payoff, but it is certainly listed in the profit or loss. So for a call, it would be the maximum, the payoff that is, of S minus X and 0. But then we have to subtract the cost of the option. Okay, so remember here, C is the call premium. The payoff for any option equals the profit or loss for the owner of an option equals the payoff minus the option premium. Now for a put option, it stands to reason that we're going to, of course, take the payoff to a put and subtract the put premium. And so we don't have to repeat the saying, but the bottom line is that we're taking the payoff and we are simply subtracting the premium. Now the sellers are in a different position altogether. The sellers lose money when the buyers make money. So if you notice, we have a negative in front of that payoff. So we say the payoff to the seller of an option is the negative of the payoff to the buyer. That way we're guaranteed that the total payoff between the two of them is zero. And then what is the profit or loss to the seller of the put? Okay, so now this time it's the profit or loss. So we have to make two significant changes. We not only have to have a negative payoff, but we have to take into account the fact that we collect the premium. So here, the profit or loss to the seller of an option equals the negative payoff to the buyer plus the option premium. That's how this works, because we're the ones who collect the premium. All right, back to this. Strategies. If a U.S. importer will buy pounds, now this time we're thinking in terms of hedging our risk, not with futures or forwards contracts, but options. So if an importer will buy pounds in 6 months and wishes to eliminate foreign exchange risk, will the importer buy a call or a put on the British pound? Well, that would be the call. Okay, so calls are used to hedge the risk that the purchase price of an asset will be higher in the future. That's why this is happening. We have to buy the call, the pounds rather. So rather than waiting and hoping for the best in 6 months, we're just going to buy an option now. And that way we've gotten rid of all of our foreign exchange risk. And then finally, if an exporter will sell pounds in 6 months and wants to eliminate the foreign exchange risk, of course, they'll do the opposite. They'll buy a put, because puts are used to hedge the risk that the sale price of an asset will be lower in the future. Okay, now a few more. What is the difference between a real and nominal exchange rate? A real exchange rate is adjusted for the price levels in the two countries, while the nominal exchange rate is not. For example, I guess I'll put this in parentheses because we don't really need it here. But for example, the real exchange rate between the dollar and the pound is adjusted for the price levels in the US and the UK. The nominal exchange rate is the rate observed in the market. In other words, it is not adjusted for either price level. All right, that should do it. Now, suppose that the gold sells for $1,700 an ounce in the US and 800 pounds per ounce in the UK. If the exchange rate is $1.70 per pound, how can investors earn risk-free profits? Very interesting question. So what we need to do, the first step, is to convert both prices into the same currency. So the UK price in terms of dollars. All right, so we take the 800 pounds per ounce and we're going to multiply it by the exchange rate of $1.70 a pound. And so the dollar price, if you multiply that out, you'll see it's 1360. So that's a pretty big difference. You're not likely to see that in the real world, but let's just say that this is the way it works, okay? Somehow the quotes are very badly out of alignment with each other. So since gold is much cheaper in the UK than in the US, in order to earn an arbitrage profit, investors will buy gold in the cheaper country, which means, of course, the UK, and sell gold in the more expensive country, the US. This will generate a profit of 1,700 minus 1,360 equals $340 per ounce. Well, that's not bad. We'll take it. In practice, of course, this kind of thing would disappear very quickly because everybody would jump on the bandwagon, and before you know it, the prices would have fully adjusted themselves to their correct levels. But if you can jump in first, you can make a lot of money. Boy, wouldn't that be nice? $340 an ounce. That's nice for a day's work, especially if you did this for 1,000 ounces. Okay, so 30. What does interest rate parity show? All right, so this shows the relationship between the spot and forward exchange rates. Okay, so let me just remind you what this thing looks like. All right, we'll give that thing a second to wake up. It can be very, very slow. F equals E times. Okay, so we have a ratio here. 1 plus the domestic rate. Whoops. Now, that has to be scaled by the time over which this forward exchange rate applies. In other words, the maturity date. And that'll be done in terms of 360-day years, because the euro currency markets, the convention in the euro currency markets is to use 360-day years. And so this is our equation for determining this relationship. That's the interest rate parity condition. And so let me just quickly review with you what these terms represent. F is the end day forward exchange rate. E is the spot exchange rate. R is the domestic rate of interest, and R star is the foreign rate of interest. Okay, so that's all you need. But I mean, really, all you really needed was right here. But I'd like to have a complete answer so you can remember what all this is all about. All right, so all that's done, and now we can take a look at these problems. So we're going to start with a triangular arbitrage case. Now, with these, remember, we're drawing circles. Before we do anything else, what we should always do is figure out what the implied cross exchange rate is here. We have one cross exchange rate. So in order to determine if arbitrage profits are possible, we should determine if the given cross exchange rate is consistent with the other two quotes. So how would you do that? Well, in a case like this, let's see, how would you do that? You could start with a dollar pound exchange rate. Which is given to us as, I don't know if they have the right symbols. I don't think they do. That's right. We'll just use the words USD for US dollar. Just like we do here. All right. So USD 1.37395 per British pound is multiplied by, or is it? That's the key. Do we multiply or do we divide? All right, let me just tidy this up a bit. So the other exchange rate was US dollar 1.1893 over the number of euros. Now, algebraically, we can rearrange this and multiply by the inverse of this denominator, EUR over USD 1.1893. Oh, so the dollars do drop out. So whatever's left behind is the euro per Great British pound exchange rate. So we're going to wind up with, so 1.7395 over 1.1893 is approximately equal to 1.4626 per British pound. All right, so this is the implied cross exchange rate between the euro and the pound. The quote given to us, or the given quote, is this. So that's a quote at which you can make a trade. All right, that's the key to the whole thing. So some dealer out there is willing to give us 1.4381 British pound, euros rather, for each pound that we bring them. The other option to look at it is that this person, this other dealer, is willing to sell British pounds for 1.4381 euros each. Since the implied cross exchange rate is 1.4626 per pound, this dealer is willing to sell pounds at a price that is too low to be consistent with the other quotes. All right, so that means we have to find a way to take advantage of this. So in order to earn an arbitrage, the trader must, somewhere in this process, use euros to buy pounds. And that's where the arbitrage will come from. So there's a dealer out there that says, listen, we'll give you all the pounds you want for 1.4381 euros, but in practice, according to the other exchange rates, it should be 1.4626. So as we go around the circle, just keep that in mind. Somewhere in that circle, it must be the case that we're using our euros to buy pounds. If we go the other direction, we're guaranteed to lose money. All right, now let's set this thing up. Now, the order in which you draw the circles isn't really relevant. What's relevant is what direction to go around the triangle. So you can put the circles anywhere you want. Just make sure you're going in the right direction. And if you don't, you'll notice at the end that you have less money than you started out with. And that means something's wrong. Now, here, we're assuming that the trader, in this case, who wants to take advantage of this situation, is in Europe and has 10 million euros to spend. So we'll use that as our starting point. So let's say we put euros up here. Not that it matters, like I said, but the US can go here. And the pound can go over here. So you start with 10 million euros. And let's use them to buy British pounds, not using the correct cross exchange rate, but the one we were given, 1.4381. Now that means we're going to divide. All right, to come up with the number of pounds that will bring us, we're going to divide 10 million pounds by 1.4381. And that's going to bring us approximately 6,953,619. We don't need the pence. Just leave it at 619. Now, once that's been done, now remember, we're in Europe. We need our profits to be quoted in euros. So we're going to trade these pounds for dollars. And that rate is 1.7395. And so this time we'll multiply these together. And that gives me 12,095,821, let's say, US dollars, which now I can bring back to Europe at the quoted rate of 1.1893 per euro. So this is a division problem. And you can tell just by looking at the units and make sure they're consistent. So we started here with 10 million euros. The question is, how much will we end up with? That's the ratio of 12,095,821 over 1.1893. That's going to be approximately 10,170,538 euros. That's where I finish. So by going around the circle in the correct direction, the arbitrage profit is the difference between the two, which is clearly 170,538 euros. And all of this because that one dealer gave us an inconsistent quote. And that's all it took. Nice. All right. So again, if you'd gone in the wrong direction, well, then you probably should start all over again and just retrace your steps and see what happened. All right. So that was number one. Let's see what number two is. Now here, what do we know? The spot exchange rate between the dollar and the pound is 175 per pound. The US 6-month rate of interest is 3%. Now, we're going to call that R because that's the domestic rate. And the UK rate for the same period is 5%. Now, since we're looking at the interest rate parity condition, the time, or treat 6 months, can be thought of as 180 days because this is the euro currency market, and therefore N is 180 in our formula. All right, so let's plug in some numbers. Oops. All right, so I have 175, 1 plus 0.03, 180 over 360, 1 plus 0.05, 180 over 360. So we can simplify this a little bit. So we've got 175. So this is basically half of 3%. And this is half of 5%. All right. So 175 times 1.015 divided by 1.025 is about 1.77329. That's good enough per pound. So in this case, that's all you had to do. If you notice, the magic words here are, what is the 6-month forward exchange rate that prevents arbitrage profits? This is the same thing as saying, what is the forward exchange rate implied by the interest rate parity conditions? In other words, this is the 6-month forward exchange rate implied by the interest rate parity condition. That's all they wanted to know. All right, excellent. Now this is basically a follow-up on part 2. This is the what we call covered interest arbitrage. Okay, so these are covered interest arbitrage problems. In these cases, arbitrage profits result when the quoted forward exchange rate is inconsistent with the interest rate parity condition. So in a problem like this, what you always need to do is find out what the correct or implied forward exchange rate should actually be. So just like we did up here. And then it'll be clear if there are, in fact, any arbitrage opportunities, and if so, what would be the best way to take advantage of them? All right, so let's see. All right, so we know that E, the spot exchange rate, is $1.70 per pound. The 90-day euro dollar rate is 2%. The 90-day euro sterling rate is 4%. And because this is 90 days, N is 90. All right, 3 months is the same thing in this case as 90 days. So let's see, how would we figure this one out? F equals, as we know, E 1 plus R n over 360 over 1 plus R star n over 360. Okay, so that leaves us with, let's see if we can squeeze this in here a little better. Which means we have 1.70 times 1 plus 2% times 90 over 360 divided by 1 plus 4% times 90 over 360. All right, so basically what you've got in the numerator is 1/4 of 2%, or 0.5%. In the denominator, you have 1/4 of 4%, which is 1. So when you multiply these out, you should get approximately $1.69 point, let's say 16. Now, if you look in the problem, they're asking you how you would make arbitrage profits under these two conditions. In the first part, you're given a quote, a forward exchange rate quote of $1.71 a pound, which is clearly too high. And in the second case, you're given a quote of 168 per pound, which is clearly too low. So the question is, how do you set these up? All right. Obviously, the strategy will be very different when F is too high and when F is too low. So in part A, we're assuming that the quote we were given is 171 per pound. It's too high. Okay, so we can trade pounds for dollars with a forward contract and receive too many dollars per pound. And so that means our strategy has to be, in order to take advantage of this, we must enter into a forward contract to use pounds to buy dollars. So that's going to determine how we set up our strategy. Now, this is the one where there's 4 components to it. And so remember that, and by the way, we're assuming that we're starting in the US with $1 million. So what should we do? Hold on. All right, let's see if we can fit this all on one page. All right, let's work through this. So we start with $1 million. They have to be converted into pounds at the spot exchange rate of $1.70 per pound. And when we do that, we're dividing. We're dividing the $1 million by $1.70 to come up with the number of pounds that we will have, which is approximately 588, 235.29. Now, we're not just going to put these pounds in our desk drawer. we're going to invest these at the euro sterling rate of interest. And the euro sterling rate of interest is 4%. Now, often with these diagrams, we like to write in the middle how long this is going to last, 90 days, just so we can adjust the interest rates properly. Now, how many euro sterling will we have in 90 days? What you're actually doing here, I'll make a note of it down here somewhere. You're multiplying this by 1 plus 0.04 times 90 over 360. And that's going to give you approximately 594,117.65 pounds. Now, this can be converted back into dollars in 90 days at this very high forward exchange rate. So here we're going to multiply these out. And that's going to leave me with, once I've sold the pounds for dollars, that gives me 1,015,941.18 in my pocket. I'll collect this. But I now have to pay back this loan. Okay, so euro dollar market is on top. This is 2%. And that means that in 90 days, I'm going to owe 1/4 of 2%. So right here is where my profits are. It's about $10,000. Okay, so my profit, not bad. So we collect 1,015,941.18 minus $1,005,000. The difference between those two is 10,941.18. Now, had we gone around the circle in the wrong direction, we would have lost money and we would have noticed it right away. We would have said, oh, we must have done something wrong. That something would almost certainly involve what you did with your forward contract. All right. What about the opposite case? Now, remember, there's a second case here where the forward exchange rate is too low. It's only $1.68. So something's wrong. That means there's an opportunity here for us to make some money. All right, so I'll show that down here. So the exchange rate, F, is $1.68 per pound. Let's get that pound symbol going here. And this is too low to be consistent with interest rate parity. This means that the strategy will involve using dollars to buy pounds through a forward contract. The opposite of what we had up here. Here we use pounds to buy dollars. Here it's going to be the other way around. But in order to do this properly, what we're going to have to do is start not in the US, but in the UK. Okay, so there's a couple of big differences here. Let me just make some space here. I want to be able to see all the variables at the same time. Yes, here we go. All right, so what do we know? Here's the data. So this time, we know that £1 million is the equivalent of about 588,000. $1 million is the equivalent of about 588,000 US British pounds. So we'll start at the bottom of the triangle this time. This is $1 million worth of pounds. We're going to borrow the pounds and then convert them at the spot exchange rate of $1.70 per pound into $1 million US. Now, this time, it's the US dollar that we're investing in the euro dollar market. So that means we'll collect in 90 days $1,005,000, which we then will sell through a forward contract with the incorrect price of 168 per pound. So remember, here we're dividing. So $1,005,000 divided by 1.68 is how much we'll collect from our investment. And that's approximately equal to 598,000 214.29 pounds. This is what we collect. And then the big question is, how much do we pay back on our British pound loan? If that's less than this amount, then we have made money. So we go through the euro sterling market. %4 for 90 days means that we're basically paying 1% back on this loan. And that means that we're going to pay on our loan $594,117.64. That's how much we have to repay. So guess what? This is where our profit is coming from. So how much did we make? Well, we just subtract the difference between the two. So the profit is $594.17. Well, sorry, no, it's $598. $214.29 minus 594. $117.64. The difference is equal to our profit. And that's going to be about 4,000, slightly over 4,000 pounds. 96.65, let's say. So that's our arbitrage profit. So you notice there's only two things that can happen with these situations. F is too high or F is too low. And so every other case will be just like these. If F is too high, we'll go in this direction around the diagram and end up taking our profit in dollars. If F is too low, it'll be the other way around. We start in pounds and we wind up down here in pounds, and our profits are denominated in pounds. Not a problem. It's still worth a lot of money. All right. So I think that was it for this problem set. It was a pretty long one, I think you'll agree, but it covered a lot of incredibly important material. Okay. Now, what still needs to be done, and we don't have to finish it today, is we'd like to go over the second sample midterm. So let's go get it. Oops, not that one. That's an outdated one. There we are. All right, so just like here, there's a lot of short fill-in questions, which we can knock off right now, and then we'll get to the tricky problem sets. All right, so hold on one second. All right, so let's do the problem sets first. I mean, the problem set. Let's, why don't we look at the short fill-ins first? All right, what's the difference between GNP and GDP? All right, so GDP measures the output of final goods and services produced within the borders of a country during a given year. GNP measures the output of final goods and services produced by the citizens of a country during a given year. All right, the key difference is that with GDP, we're measuring things that are built within the United States, let's say, versus where in GNP, what we're only trying to capture is the goods that are produced by Americans. Now, would cars produced by Nissan in the US be included in Japan's GDP? No, because the cars were not built in Japan. All right, that's what matters there. How about cars being produced by Ford in the UK? Should they be included in US GNP? There, the answer is yes, because Ford is an American company. It doesn't matter where they're being produced, they will count in our GNP. All right, what are the four components of GDP? All right, we've seen this before. It is consumer spending, investment spending, government spending, and finally net exports. Now, non-durable goods are the ones that are not meant to last a long time, but if you want to be very technical about it, they're meant to last, according to the government statistical agency that keeps track of this stuff, less than 3 years. Are transfer payments included in the calculation of GDP? No, because this would lead to double counting. Okay. In which section of the balance of payments do we find the unilateral transfers? Well, you know what? Let's go back and revisit that discussion real fast. All right, let's go find, that was chapter 10. There it is. So the net unilateral transfers do belong in the current account. Okay, now what is this statistical discrepancy? You see it listed on there, and what it is, this is an account that is designed to balance of payments. It its value equals whatever, all right, let's put it this way. Its value equals the current account balance minus capital account balance minus the financial account balance. Because this way, everything adds up to zero. Actually, let me write it a slightly different way. The negative of the sum of the current account balance, let's put it this way, capital account balance and the financial account balance. All right, so for example, let's just put it this way. If the sum of these three accounts adds up to $100 billion, then the statistical discrepancy would be negative 100 billion. Okay, whatever it takes to make sure that those accounts all add up to zero. Okay, now here's some more straightforward ones. If the dollar appreciates, what happens to the current account? The current account balance worsens if the dollar appreciates. And of course, that's because our exports are too expensive and our imports are very cheap. A spot exchange rate, of course, is the price. We saw this a little while ago, of course. This is the price of a currency that will be delivered immediately. Now, here's the quote. At what price can the pound be bought from a foreign exchange dealer? Well, just remember, if you're buying the pound, whichever quote is more disadvantageous to you is the one that you'll pay. All right, they're trying to make money. So they're going to charge you the higher of those two prices. All right. Now, suppose here that the dollar pound exchange rate rises from 136 to 138. Which currency is depreciated? The dollar has depreciated because it takes more dollars to buy pounds. That's the reason. Here, suppose the yen-dollar exchange rate falls from 100 to 90 yen. Well, in this case, the dollar has depreciated because it takes fewer yen to buy $1. In the long run, what happens to the inflation rate of a country whose currency appreciates? The inflation rate falls when a currency appreciates because it's stronger and import prices will be lower. All right, so we have four differences between forwards and futures contracts. So this is exactly what we had before. I'll tell you what I'm going to do just to save a little time here because we're running low on time. Hold on one second. I was just going to copy them. All right, because they're the same. We don't have to go through that again. If a U.S. importer will buy pounds in 6 months, wants to eliminate the foreign exchange risk, then the importer will enter into a long forward contract to buy pounds. If the U.S. importer will sell pounds in 6 months, and same thing, wants to get rid of the risk, the exporter will enter into a short forward contract to sell pounds. Okay. So what right does the call option provide? It provides a right, but not the obligation to buy an asset in the future at a price that is determined today. And then the put option provides the right, again, but not the obligation, to sell an asset in the future at a price that is determined today. The difference between a European and American option, a European option can be exercised, can only be exercised on the maturity date. An American option can be exercised at any time until the option's maturity. All right. This payoff to the seller, remember the seller has a negative payoff. And since it's a call, that's S minus X and 0. The buyer of a put has a payoff of max, X minus S and 0. The profit or loss to the buyer of a call. Remember, we have to take into account the call price. If a U.S. exporter wants to sell pounds in 6 months and wants to eliminate the risk with an option, then he'll buy a put option. Okay, because if you're planning on selling, you always hedge your risk with a put. If you're planning on buying, you hedge your risk with a call. And then finally, the real exchange rate is defined as Q equals E P star over P, where Q equals the real exchange rate, E is the nominal exchange rate, P is the domestic price level, and P star is the foreign price level. Nice. Okay. Now, it looks like we're going to have some room for some problems. Now, let's see. So we've got some old familiar friends here, like the triangular arbitrage. So let's see how this one is. Now, they're all different. So let's see what's going on here. So we first want to find out if there are any arbitrage possibilities in the first place. So remember, this is our cross exchange rate. All right, so let's try this. Let's see what happens when we take dollars per pounds and divide by, we did this before, dollars per euro. And then in that case, that's 110. Algebraically, this is the same thing as divide or multiplying by the inverse. The dollars cancel out, and we're left with approximately 1.2727 euros per pound. So the cross exchange rate is not consistent with that number, is it? No. So we have an opportunity here to make some money. So let's take advantage of it. This time, though, the trader is in London and starts out with £1 million. So let's keep the circles in the same order we had before. Not that it really matters. So here, £1 million in London to start. Now, here's the thing, though. Each pound is implied to be worth 1.2727 euros. Here, they're giving us a quote of 1.30. So that means what we want to do is sell pounds for euros. We want to sell pounds for euros since each pound will bring us 1.30 euros instead of 1.2727 euros. Okay, so that's the source of our arbitrage opportunities. So that means we want to go in this direction right off the bat. So in this case, we're actually, oops, no, sorry, that's not what I wanted. It's euros. Sorry, the cross exchange rate is euros per pound. I've written the wrong thing completely here. And then we multiply, and when we do, that means in Europe, we'll have 1.3 million euros. Then we come back to the US. The exchange rate is quoted as $1.10 per euro. So this many euros is we're going to multiply to get the number of dollars. Which turns out to be $1,430,000. Now we bring these back to Britain at the quoted exchange rate of $1.40 per pound. This time we're dividing. So $1,430,000 divided by 1.40 gives us 1,021,429 pounds. So the profit is the difference between these two, 21,429. All right, so we don't have quite enough time. We can finish number 2. Number 3, we don't have time. I'll tell you what we'll do. Since this is the second sample midterm and you need it to work on your actual midterm, what I'll do is I will enter the correct solutions for number 3, and then I will post these solutions when we're done. So you'll have the solutions for the Chapter 11 problem set and the second sample midterm. And remember, for next time, what you will want to do is bring with you the solutions to the Chapter 12 and 15 problem sets, along with your sample final, which I don't think I've finished writing it yet, but I will take care of that very, very soon. Okay, 12, 15, yes, and sample final. Perfect. All right, so let me just quickly squeeze in this one last solution, and then I will enter into the bottom here the correct solution for number 3, and they will be posted along with the sample final so that you'll be 100% ready on Thursday. And of course, you'll have plenty of time to do this, given that we don't meet on Monday. So this is 3 months, 90 days. Actually, let me just fill in the numbers from here. Spot exchange rate is $1.50. The US rate is 1. And then we have 2% in the UK. Equals 150 times 1.0025 over 1.0050. And that worked out to be 1.4962 per pound. And that's it. So like I said, we'll have to stop right here, sadly enough. And so I'll fill in the rest of the answers for number 3, and then you'll have everything you need for next week. All right. So don't forget not to show up on Monday.
Professor, is it okay if you stay behind after class? I just want to ask you a quick question.
All right, that's fine. All right, so everybody else, you can go home now, or at least go do something else. All right.
I kind of wanted to.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
I kind of needed to speak to you as well.
All right. What do you? Well, all right. Is it? I don't know how to decide. Is it quick?
She can go first. She can go first. Just go ahead.
All right. Okay.
No, this is. Can I? Okay, this is more like, I guess, personal and relate as it relates to.
Oh, you know what? If that's the case, maybe you should send me an email.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, because if it's personal, we don't want other people hearing it.
Oh, I could just go first and then.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this might not sound like a smart question. I'm just asking because I wanted to make sure. At the beginning of the whenever you would talk about problem sets chapters, you kind of spoke about them as like practice.
They were all practice. That's right. You were not supposed to hand them in.
So none of the problem sets are due. Everything is right.
Everything is just the only thing you're handing in is the exams.
Okay, so the midterm so far is the only thing we have to hand in. Right?
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Well, all right. Do you want to